Hello and good evening to Cherries Red Army. Wherever you are in the world, it's been a warm week in the UK. I've got some of the team with me this evening. We're on another live stream because the fixtures were released, the transfer window's open. There are lots of things to discuss. Do hit the like button, do subscribe, and do use that interactive chat. John, good evening. How are you? It's been very warm in Bournemouth this week.
Yeah, it's been warm up here in Manchester as well. Weekend was unbearable, but I do have a greenhouse of a bedroom. Thanks for having me on again, Kirk. Speaking of heat, I do have the window open, so if you do hear an airplane going by, don't worry about it. It's just out my window. It's not anywhere in any of your houses.
If you're joining us live on YouTube and Twitter, do get your comments in the chat. Tell us you are with us. Say hello. We'll show it on the screen. Steve Hensman, you spend a lot of time on the road. It's very hot. I hope you've got air conditioning.
Yeah, I have. So that's a bonus. Much to all the guys on my firm's they don't like it because I've got aircon and they haven't. So yeah, that's a bonus, I suppose. One bonus in my job, but I'm okay, mate. I'm soldiering on. I've been diagnosed with a slipped disc now, which is lovely. Not sciatica, so I'm still a little bit sort of bedridden, but I'm getting through it.
I'd like to say you're just trying to get out of playing golf with me because I beat you, but I don't ever
Well,
beat you.
I hear Jimmy Favola's on the horizon now for a game with you.
Not sure. He might not have picked that one up yet. Aaron, that's a nice shirt. Talking about retro shirts, more retro shirts may be hitting the AFCB Superstore very, very soon, along with NHL gear. Tell us about the shirt. How you doing?
Yeah, very good. Back to the old yellow coaches days. Got some fond memories of trips to, middle of nowhere. This fixture list is far more appealing. Well, depends which way you look at it, but yeah. Doing well. Also very hot up here in Bournemouth. Hay fever's not great, so I apologise for any sneezing fits I might have.
Let's get some early shouts out then to Chris Hubble. How are you? Donald, good to see you. Mark Singleton, thank you very much for your comments and for joining us. Mark Cole. Yeah, and look, if you've been under a rock today, if you didn't know, the fixtures are out for the 23-24 Premier League season. Let's just quickly show them on the screen. What we will do is we will break this down into chunks where we'll debate it, see where we think Bournemouth can get points and see where we can try and survive. But we will open up against West Ham at home, an opening day home game again. We will have Boxing Day against Fulham on Tuesday the 26th. And we will finish the season away at Stamford Bridge, where we sometimes get results. What I was thinking, guys, and actually Bournemouth did release this, was the travel. Especially for you, Steve. There'll be some serious miles for you to do. I'll see if I can pick this off in a moment. But 7,000 miles. If I was to say to you, Steve, coming to you first, if you could just give me one away day that you can't wait for next season, which stadium team would it be?
Oh, that's a hard one. I did really enjoy Newcastle. I thought that was great. Really enjoyed it up there. Fans are great up there. It's a really good experience. Right in slap bang in the centre of town. It's just out of nowhere, just this massive, huge stadium. So that's a really good one. I'll always look out for that. And plus, it's the Eddie factor as well, isn't it? So that's a good away day. I don't know. Burnley's one. I know it's not a great glamorous one, but it's one I've never done. So I'm quite looking forward to that one. The two I need to do are Everton and Burnley. So they're definitely on the list, as probably most of them will be, to be fair.
Yeah, I think I was looking earlier on. There's about 5 or 6 that I haven't done through the Premier League era. We know that Luton have obviously come up as well, and that's one I need to knock off. Definitely
that's
need
a good one as well.
Yeah, well, some think it's a good one, and then someone just take the moment to have a bit of a dig at it.
Character building.
Yeah, it is. Brighton's definitely one I need to do. I know it's a bit out the way, but apparently it is a really, really good stadium, and it's a really good away day. John, if there was a away day you could pick right now for next season, where would it be?
Newcastle's certainly right up there. Newcastle is one of my favourite away days. It's just a shame that it just wasn't all that great last season. It was a weird thing because it was the weekend of the Queen's passing. Death. And it was just so subdued. And I really wanted to go up there and to go absolutely ballistic and feel the famous atmosphere that I've been up a couple of times and never felt, because the first time we went up there, they had flipping McLaren and we beat them 3-0, 3-1. Went up there and obviously drew 1-1 with them, and that wasn't anything all that special. So I want to feel like, get the best out of the Newcastle atmosphere. Having said that, I think I probably pick Luton because I didn't go there when we were in our championship season. I do want to that, and it's just around the corner from my dad's as well, so I can stay with him that weekend. But Luton would be one I definitely want to go visit.
I don't know if you do this as well, Aaron, but I got the fixtures. So I was like, right, which one's near my wife's birthday? Then it's the kids' birthdays. Fortunately, if it's my son's, it doesn't matter. We just go to Arsenal, the Emirates, because it's his birthday. But my daughter, not really any fixtures clashing on this season, which is great, because I missed Nottingham Forest away because we had a lovely break with the wife. But what away day would you pick out right now, if you could, that you're looking forward to?
Forest is definitely one. I love going to Forest. It's a shame I think it's in December, because it's last few couple of times it's been like nice sunny day. Love the Canal House pub. I just love the ground. And it's just, it's always a good atmosphere at Forest and good memories there. Luton obviously as well. Went there in the championship. I've been there loads of times in the lower divisions, but went there last season and couldn't sit with anyone because we all split up from everybody. That was a bit of a nightmare. But Newcastle as well, the obvious ones. I mean, the likes of City, United, Liverpool don't massively excite me anymore. Sad as that is, a few years ago it would have been crazy to say that.
Keep losing that.
Well, there's that as well. I'm definitely looking forward to that. Everton as well is another one I haven't been to. So a fair few. I'm definitely not looking forward to Crystal Palace on a Tuesday night. I have to say, it's going to be a bloody nightmare. A cold Tuesday night. I think it's going to January.
I might swerve that one, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's officially London, so it's not that far from me, but it is a nightmare to get to, even from where I live. So, we'll see.
Now, do get involved in the chat. Any topic we're talking about, just put your thoughts in the chat, open it up. We'll show some on the screen. We want to interact with you. We'll have a bit of fun tonight. We'll spend the first part of this stream talking about that fixture list, breaking it down. Then we're going to move slightly onto the transfer window. Bournemouth is starting to be linked with some new players. Maybe not quite the positions we need right now, but we'll start to look at a couple of players. But let's go straight into that first chunk of the season that Gary O'Neill and the team are going to have to attempt to pick up some early points. So we are going to go into August. It is West Ham at home, Liverpool away, Anfield again in August, Tottenham at home. Maybe that's a good stadium for us now. September will be Brentford away, Chelsea at home, Brighton and Hove Albion away, Arsenal at home. What will Arsenal look like this season after their confident season last season? Just missed out. In October, Everton away, Wolves at home, Burnley at home. So I want to break up this chunk, guys, because tough fixtures straight on social media. Wow, that's a tough start. I mean, they're all tough games. But I have sort of worked out myself, Steve, that I feel like we need to get to like a projected target. I want to get to like 12 points. If we are struggling for points, I feel like we need to win every game in October. Those first batch of games, if you have a number in your head, do tell us. But how are you feeling about that opening spell?
I'm pretty much like you on this one, mate. I looked at it and I thought, blimey, if we don't get off to a good start against West Ham, it could be a bit of a struggle and it could look really bad for Gary. Like a lot of people have already pointed out that if things don't go well, he could be, I don't want to say it, but he could be on the chopping boards, quite early on. It's dicey, isn't it? Liverpool away, second. It's then Spurs, Brentford. I mean, these are all
Big
teams
games
that finished in the top half, aren't they? Barring Chelsea, I think they're just below the line, but they're going to come back, I think, and be a different force this time. Brighton. I think I spoke about this earlier. I said the thing is, you've got the likes of Brighton in there and Villa and these clubs, and you think, oh, Christ, they're decent sides now, but they have all got into Europe. Some of these sides, West Ham as well. They might have one eye on that as well. They might be sort of splitting up their squad a bit more. There might be opportunities for us to pick up points where we think we might not necessarily get them. So we could, but if it doesn't go right, then you're looking at that October and thinking we've got to win each of those games because they're very winnable games on paper. You look at those 3 teams there. I mean, we beat Everton twice last season. Probably should have got a draw against them in the last game if it weren't for a wonder strike. Wolves, we didn't lose to last season. I know we lost to Burnley last season, but that was a cup game and it was a bit of a mishmash. So you'd like to think if things don't go well to start with, October is where we try and pick up some points and get our train back on the rails.
Now, John, you've made some mates at the back end of last season in our survival scrap. West Ham are massive. They were probably a big club before they won their European trophy. They might be without Declan Rice. Quite big, though. Again, just like Aston Villa last season. Probably need to get something from that opening day.
Yeah, I would say so. It's going to be a tough one, that one, because, I mean, you know, you've only got to remember our home game against them last season, and that was... did they end up 4-0 in the end?
Yeah, 4-0.
Yeah, so...
hard watch.
Yeah, that one was a tough one, particularly after I'd given it a bit of the big un on that the beat the drop beforehand. And that was when I thought we were in a decent bit of form as well. I think I remember seeing someone post on Twitter those first 8 games, and that obviously includes Everton away. In our previous season, we didn't pick up a single point in any of those first 8 games. So, you know, if we get any points from that, it'll be a bonus. No, but I think as a lot of people against a lot of the other fans will be, I just want to see some performances against some of those bigger teams. Because I mean, I'm not expecting us to suddenly start picking up wins in a bunch of those games. I think we'll have a good chance in quite a few of them. But you know, I think if we don't get anything at all from West Ham at home, I'm instantly really worried for the next 2 months.
Now, Aaron, the elephant in the room, and I'm going to bring the graphic back on the screen because I did post this on Twitter and I am looking at this. It's Gary O'Neill's first full pre-season. I think we're going to be pretty busy in the transfer window. My eyes earlier on went to Burnley at home, and we know how that went in the cup last season. Burnley at home, if by that point we're not looking in a good place from performances, points, I'm almost looking at Man City as away as a point where we could just throw that game, don't get anything against them anyway, and switch the management up if we need to. Now, there is going to be a future video where me and John are going to talk about this in more detail. We all know that the fan base is split on Gary O'Neill. I think we all want him to do really well. But I do feel there's got to be a point earlier on where if it's not looking good, and it's that point where I just think there's an opportunity if we need to for the sake of our season.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a bit it's obviously premature to think that way. You know, I think he probably would look to those fixtures and yeah, look, you play everyone twice and all that, but it's a very hard start, and I think you know, but at the same time, you know, you're looking at Brentford away, Brighton away. Yes, those teams, certainly Brighton, massively impressed last season. They'll lose some play. They've already lost McAllister. They could well lose Caicedo. I know, being them, they'll probably replace them. But you know, and Brentford obviously won't have Tony. But when we play them, I just think, you know, at some stage we can't look at all of those games and sort of just literally choose the 3 promoted teams plus Forest and a couple of others and say they're the only winnable games. You know, I think Tottenham and Chelsea at home, no, that's not Manchester City, that's not Arsenal, that's not Liverpool. Yes, Chelsea will improve. They can't be any worse, let's face it, but they finished like 12th last season. So, you know, are they even going to break into the top 5 or 6? Pochettino's a good manager, but they still got a very disjointed squad. Tottenham really are Harry Kane. They got a manager from Celtic who has never proved himself at any decent level, particularly. Kane might go, Kane might stay, but with or without him, they're very bang average. And that those 2 games are at home, so I wouldn't write us off, you know, because we always beat one of the so-called bigger teams. So, you know, like John and Steve said, if we lose to West Ham at home, I'll be concerned, but that's just because, you know, that's just a natural reaction. But there's nothing, you know, I don't think we can look at the next 7 and sort of say, right, or 6, whatever it is, and just say, well, I can't see anywhere any points are coming from. This is our 7th season in the Premier League now, and we've got to be able to compete. If we can't compete, then, and you know, where are we going to pick up any points from? But that October is huge. to come to your point, I think, look, clearly, if you have a terrible start, 1 point from the first 7 games, for argument's sake, if that goes that way, then huge pressure on obviously on Gary O'Neill and his staff for that October, which, as you say, has to be 3 winnable games. But it's just so difficult. It's so difficult to predict. No one knows how anyone's going to start or how anyone's going to finish.
And everyone's looking at this with last season's hat on, aren't they? Really, because no one knows what we're going to do pre-season. No one knows what Gary's going to roll out, players that are going to come in, and that goes for all our opposition as well. So the fabric of the landscape might be completely, look completely different by the time we come around to kick off for the first ball of the first game. So it's natural to just look at it as what we've seen last season and base it on that, which really, in reality, is not going to be like that.
No. Steve, I thought you might know because you've got a scouting list. We're not going to release it, but Steve literally has a scouting list of players.
I said I've been sat around doing not a lot lately, so I've been scouring the internet.
He's been scouting. Right, I think we got a West Ham fan joining us. Thanks for joining us. All right, can't wait to meet you in a couple of weeks. Look, you might be without Declan Rice. You might not even have Antonio. We might have a chance this time round, but thanks for joining us. Got Ben in the chat. Thank you very much, Ben. Fixtures worry me that there's a lot of winnable games in the winter period, but we're always rubbish in the winter. Yeah, try and find positives when it's wet, cold, windy.
We don't like that on Bournemouth Beach.
At least there's not many games in January, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a busy December, which we'll come to in just a moment.
Sky move everything.
Let's go into that period, shall we, that Ben's talking about. So after October, we'll go into November. There'll be Manchester City away. Eddie Howe returns again, hopefully as Newcastle manager at home. Then it's one of the promoted sides, Sheffield United away. Then it's a busy December. I hope you're not spending a lot of Christmas. Aston Villa at home, Crystal Palace away, Manchester United away, Luton Town at home, Forest away, Fulham on Boxing Day at home, and Tottenham away. John, there we go. Just got it out in time. Looking at those fixtures and where we need to be at that point, it's a very busy December. And there are winnable games in there.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, there's winnable games all over the place. So it's to be pedantic, but it's it's very true that we tend to do hit a period where we suddenly stop really getting those performances together. Although I always kind of felt that was more January than necessarily December, which is good because there's like 2 games in January as opposed to the 300 that are in December. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that busy period. It's one of the massive draws of the Premier League is that it's always very, very busy around Christmas, or I suppose just generally in English divisions. But you've got Luton, Fulham, Villa, Palace, Forest, all winnable, very much so. Man United away, less so, and then we would have said the same about Tottenham Hotspur away, but could definitely see another win coming in that one. So it's a good packed schedule with definitely opportunities to pick up points. It very much is as though that it's going to be a very difficult beginning. It looks also like, as we'll come on to, a very difficult end, which means there's obviously going to be softer patches in the middle. And that's when you've got to make the most of who you're playing against. And
looks like our season best on October and March by the looks of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do find it weird that it basically just seems to be like all the August and September appear again right at the end in April and May, and October and March are basically the exact same fixtures but flipped. We are very much sort of packed with a soft middle. It's the crustiest sandwich in the world. You've got stale bread either side, and you've got the real juicy stuff in the middle that you want to really attack. I just don't. It's going to be difficult all season, but it's like when things really hit hit the busy period, and games come thick and fast, you want to be taking form into that, and that's what we'll hopefully do. And if Gary O'Neill gets the players in that he wants, then there's no reason not to.
We're not saying that someone got bored and just decided to cheat with the fixtures and just save themselves some time. We're not. I'm not sure they're actually writing them down on paper. I'm sure there's a really technical way of doing it. But yeah, they always do look similar, which is why I predicted Fulham for Boxing Day. I felt like it was either Chelsea or Fulham because we always seem to get those types of teams on Boxing Day. It was the only one I predicted right. Steve, I was thinking as well, looking through this period, showing the graphic on the screen again, really wanting to achieve 3 wins in a row. Haven't done that since 2015-16, our first Premier League season. Looking at Luton, Forest and Fulham, could that be the chance? Apart from October.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, there is October, but then you could also say Sheffield United, Villa Palace.
Yes.
There's a few little runs there. You could probably get some, like John said, you need to get a little bit of momentum, but it does look very fragmented. Having said that, we didn't really get any momentum last season of any note. There was that period where Gary took over and that good April, but apart from that, it was difficult to pick up wins. And I think it's just the nature of the Premier League. You know, around every sort of soft game, there's a gargantuan of European football there waiting for you. So it's a difficult task for Gary and the boys, but they will be targeting certain games, and like we're doing now, they'll be looking at these sort of winnable, as you say, matches. And I think those little periods, there are sporadically through the season, ones they're going to want to target more than others.
Aaron, we didn't see out 2022 with that Palace loss. It wasn't a very good finish to the year. We'll see out the year with Tottenham away. Absolute limbs last season. Might be tough to replicate that, but it's all about trying to see in the new year with a positive performance or positive result as you come to your last game in December.
Yeah, I mean, is it me or is it there's never this many games in December, is there? I mean, it looks ridiculous.
Is it because of the mid-season break?
Must
is
be.
there
Yeah,
this mid-season break
which definitely helps us in January, as you say. We've got literally one game. Well, West Ham's right at the end. We've got one game in January, so good chance to bed in with new players, which we're going to need to keep us up. But yeah, look, I think December's definitely some winnable games in there. As I said, I love going to Forest, Luton at home, Fulham at home. You know, we've got to look to target them, and Tottenham away. I guess why not? We go there a bit of confidence. I think the way we played last season. So looking forward to it.
I was just thinking we should do all right in December. It's almost like being in the Championship again, isn't it? Tuesday, Saturday. We're used to that.
I mean, the way I'm thinking this year is that last year we were obviously us, Fulham and Forest were the new boys, and we weren't sure if we had a competitive squad. Blah blah blah. The fact is that Luton, Burnley, Sheffield United are going to be looking at this with more trepidation probably than we should be, and add into that Everton, Forest, who finished below us as well. Yeah, and we know we're going to strengthen. Clearly, we're going to strengthen. We obviously lost one key player. We might lose another one or two, but it's daunting. But I'm not. I still think we're less worried than 4 or 5 other teams.
Let's go into January 2024, where, as Aaron spoke about, not many games. So there is a mid-season break in there. Normally the FA Cup appears as well. It's Liverpool at home. That might be on TV. They do like to put Liverpool at home on TV. Then it's West Ham away at the end of January. February, Nottingham Forest at home, Fulham away, Newcastle United away. That's a great away day. Manchester City at home. They'll probably likely be fighting for that title again. And then it'll be Burnley away, Sheffield United at home, Wolves away, Everton at home. So we get into that middle patch. Steve, we'll also have the January transfer window. So the club might do some more business, depending on where we're at and what the squad's looking like. But what are you thinking about that period before we go into the run-in?
Well, I think we'll need to have that break in January because we're going to have no money left after December. So going all those games.
That's us. That's us that needs the break. Not the club.
Yeah, no, I know. Financially, we'd be in ruins. But it'll be weird because we've never really experienced a period like that before, have we? So it might be, and who knows what it's going to be like. It might be a nice break to not have to worry about it for a bit, and then sort of regroup after you've had the first half of the season, like you say, get some new signings in if we need to, and then look at targeting some of these other games because February looks like there's a couple of winnables there, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and then March looks like it's all winnable really, or we should be targeting those because we're going to need to, as we're going to talk about the end running, that looks really dicey in my opinion. And I think it was Tom brought up on Twitter earlier, 7 years of Premier League football, we've never had a home game at the end of the season. Strange, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, that's weird.
John, and again, looking at points where we can pick up back-to-back wins, maybe 3 in a row. I'm looking at Burnley, Sheffield United, Wolves. But I suppose it's around January, February, more March where the league starts to take shape. Hopefully we're playing around in mid-table. That's Bill Foley's dreams and a little bit beyond. But it will start to take shape. We might bin our pre-season predictions because they're probably way out. And then you start to reset what you think might happen and who's going to be trying to stay in the Premier League. And look, you might be in beat the drop 2024 in a few months' time. But the league should start taking shape in March, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it'll take the shape sort of. I suppose the point where you really sort of start looking is really, I would say, at the end of December, at a good point, because that's the halfway point of the season. You have played everyone, but once we get to Fulham, I think Fulham will be the last one of the first sort of lot around in Boxing Day. But yeah, sort of then. By the time you got to March and there's about 10 games left, I think we'll be halfway at panic. We may all be at panic stations by then, but yeah, I mean, the table doesn't lie come the end of the season, but it will shift around and change somewhat during the course of the rest of the time. I mean, we were, we did hit bottom of the table when we lost to Arsenal, but then we fired back with a win against Liverpool, and we never really looked back after that. So. Yeah, it'll shift around, and I think we're all seeing start of the season, probably relegation zone for a while. Once we hit the middle of the season, we should be escaping it comfortably and should never get back in again if we're doing our job. So by the time it comes around towards the end of March and we have that decent run of winnable games, Burnley away, Sheffield United at home, Wolves away, Everton at home, like that should be at the point where we're thinking, right, 8 games to go. We should be pretty much on 40. We should be looking to be basically on 40 points at that stage. We should be looking to be really, really close to it if we're on target, because you want to be safe as soon as possible. And by the time it gets to the middle of April, as we will see shortly, then if we're not safe, we might start worrying again.
Yeah, Ben's got dreams of Europe. I can see Ben in the chat. He's saying get to 40. Then we can start targeting Europe. We'd love a little European away day. Sean's talking about needing a striker and a right back. We'll talk about transfer window in just a bit, Sean. Thanks for joining us. And Phoenix has said the best time of the season, Aaron, is the first 2 months because the table is more fun. But talking about the mid-spell, January sort of your last chance saloon, really, if you think that you're not quite set up to finish the season well, where you can make changes, maybe get some players in. It doesn't always work. I mean, we bought Todd Cantwell and that didn't do anything. And I thought Todd Cantwell would be a fantastic player for us. So the middle spell is about trying to make sure you are in the best place to survive or try and achieve your objectives of finishing mid-table or whatever you set out to achieve.
Yeah, well, look, we're all talking about our horrific start, but I guess even if worst case scenario is we don't get many points in those first 7 games, the likelihood is that there'll be enough teams within touching distance of us. So it won't be such a panic, because at that stage of the season, you might only be 3 or 4 or 5 points behind maximum, quite a few teams. So it's probably a good thing. And I think that January, depending when the Liverpool game is, because I think it's 1 of 2 weekends, it could be a 3-week break, or even apart from that Liverpool game, a 4-week break until we play West Ham at the end of January, where that might be another opportunity if changes need to be made, that we can, have a good time to bed people in, either new players or new management, depending on obviously where we are, but certainly for new players. So yeah, I mean, it's all parts of the season are key, but I think as John alluded to just now, we want to try and get things done as quickly as we can. Like we were this year, if we, at the end of the day, it was frustrating to be on the beach the last 4 games and not getting any points, but I think if we can do that by the end of March, early April, then fine,
And we go into the final chunk of the season, April. Then it becomes tense or fun. Crystal Palace at home, Luton away, Manchester United at home, Aston Villa away, Brighton and Hove Albion at home. And finally, it will be Arsenal away, Brentford at home, Chelsea away. And those final set of fixtures in May, Steve, look nervous, but we don't need to be nervous because we'll be safe. But April, May, yeah, that's the crunch end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're. It does look difficult on paper, but there's also, I mean, it's the beginning of April. Even if you follow on from March, Crystal Palace home, Luton away, you could take that form into April. If say we're in that vein of form at that time, because they are winnable games for there. You've got another 2 winnable games there. You never know, like the likes of Man United, Villa, Brighton, where they're going to be in European football. So they might have one eye on that. Arsenal as well. Brentford and Chelsea to end with is I think, yeah, I think both of those teams. Well, Chelsea definitely will be a different force this season. I've got no doubt about that. They can't be any worse. And Brentford will have Ivan Toney back by that point, or should have, I think. So
wouldn't bet on it.
It's a tricky one. Well, you would.
They haven't sold him.
There are 3 home. Yeah, sorry, Steve.
No. I was just going to say, yeah, it does. On paper, it looks quite bad, but I think you can put a positive spin on it and say, look, we should have some momentum from March going into April. A couple of winnable games there. Other teams that might have gone long into competitions. There's chances there, and also you don't know where those people are going. Those clubs are going to be in the table. They might have their own troubles, and they might be nervous trying to get a Champions League spot or a stave off relegation, like Luton, for example.
Aaron, there are 3 home games in April and 2 games away, with one of them being Luton. So we had a purple patch last season in April. You know, there's nothing to say we couldn't have another one.
Yeah, look, Luton away, clearly, you know, we're going to have to target that. Not only a great away day, but a real chance for 3 points. And Villa away, I mean, obviously, you know, we lost the 3-0 this year. It was pretty much a non-event. But Steve said earlier, Villa are going to be in Europe. I think with Emery in charge, they'll probably do very well in Europe. You know, he knows how to win those European trophies. So, you know, I think Ben made a point before that if you put it up or not, you know, the likes of Fulham, Brentford, Brighton, Villa, I guess, add to that. Will they be as good as last season? Can Brighton be any better? Can Brighton be better? Will Fulham be, you know, that they all had excellent seasons and without wanting to, you know, write them off because they might all have great seasons again. I'm just not sure if all 4 of them, and I include Villa in that, will be as consistent as they were last year, and why we couldn't mix it with them home or away.
Will's already thinking about the away kit. Maybe gold. Yes. Vegas Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup. John, big question for you as we close out the thoughts on the fixture list at the end of the season. When do we take our foot off the gas? Which game is it? When do we head for the beach?
So when we're safe, Gabe.
We're already exactly when we're safe. It depends if we're safe. If we're safe middle of March, then we won't take our foot off it because we'll actually probably have something to target. If we're safe at, say, I don't know, United, Villa, Brighton, that period, then yeah, I'm not really all that fussed about going to games in May. But yeah, I mean, it's like I think that Luton Town away should hopefully be the point at which we hit at a bare minimum. We're hitting 40 points in that game.
Oh,
I think
6 games to go after that. That'd be good going.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that if you look at the games that they are, it's admittedly, I think Brentford probably won't do as well as they did last season. Brighton shouldn't do as well as they did last season. They'll be in Europe for a decent chunk of it. But after that, you've got United, Villa, Arsenal, Chelsea. It's like, as much as Villa, again, shouldn't do as well because they're in Europe. Those are all games that I don't look forward to in terms of like, you know, are we going to win any of those games? Because like those are all really good teams. We could definitely do, but it's sort of like the last sort of one where you go like, no, that should be a win is Luton away. Although maybe Brentford at home. But it's going to be tough. So you need to really get in the points before we hit that sort of crunch time, I would say, which we kind of almost did this season just gone.
Phoenix agrees with you, Steve, in the chat about not presuming that these teams will have similar performances next season coming. And look at West Ham. They were really on the edge of... I mean, Steve, I think you predicted West Ham to go at one point, and they then won in Europe.
Well, look at Leicester, you know.
Well, I mean, you can also flip that on the head for the start of the season. I always say that the first sort of half a dozen games in the beginning of the season, you never know who's going to hit the ground running and who's brought in new management, say, and their philosophy's not transpiring onto the pitch quite at that moment. It takes a little bit of time, and they're slow starters. So there's opportunities to catch teams cold. You might think, well, usually we'd suffer at the hands of them. So I always think the beginning of the season throws up a few surprises to start off with.
For me, by the way, this year, this is Mark. Just remember this: Wolves will be this season's Leicester.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be fair.
Yeah,
the one thing I would say as well is
right.
the one thing I would just say as well is that I think there's a I would say that the vast majority of fan bases outside of Bournemouth have a perception that Bournemouth started horribly last season, and I mean, I get it, but if you think about the fact that our first 4 games, which is when Parker got sacked, was admittedly 3 very bad losses, but we beat Villa. We were, if anything, maybe even slightly ahead of schedule with 3 points from those 4 games. Then obviously went on our unbeaten run, picked up points against Wolves, Forest, and then, the rest after that. Like, this is a much tougher start this season than it was last season. But having said that, there are 3 other promoted sides that we should be looking at and going, we should do better than those 3. Burnley is the one that's up for debate, but I'd say definitely Sheffield United and Luton we should be saying we'll do better than. So, we're definitely in a stronger position, if not a tougher league.
Yeah, I thought we'd be
so
lucky
18th
to get
then, John.
So 18th. No, 17th. Come on.
I thought we'd be lucky to get 1 point when those fixtures came out.
Well, the whole 40, all 38. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. But I thought in the first 4 games, I thought if we get 1 point, we've done well. And we've got 3, obviously. Found the graphic now. So if you like an away day, that's the wrong one. If you like an away day, there is the graphic that AFC Bournemouth did post on social media. 7,000 miles and a lot of games in December, home and away. Look, let's just have a quick look then, guys, before we move to transfer business. Let's take a look at the opening day of the Premier League. So you've got Burnley against Manchester City on the Friday, Company against Guardiola. We've got Arsenal against Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United against Crystal Palace, Bournemouth West Ham, Brighton Luton, Everton Fulham, Newcastle Villa, Brentford Spurs, Chelsea Liverpool, Man United Wolves on the Monday night. Quickly, Steve, any thoughts on the rest of the Premier League? Game 1.
I'm not trying to debate the Premier League's integrity here, but that Burnley Man City game just seems almost too good to be true, doesn't it? As a starter for the champions of the Championship against champions of the Premier League and the Guardiola company thing.
Yeah,
I mean, you couldn't make that up, could you?
No,
I think that just stinks to me of that we've done that for TV purposes. It does. But I suppose, I mean, that's the standout one, really. I can't. Well, Chelsea Liverpool's a big game, isn't it?
Big game.
It'd be interesting to see how Chelsea's both of those teams underperformed last season. It'd be interesting to see who starts the better.
Yeah, opening day for Pochettino at home to Liverpool. Going to want a good start. Aaron, I'm not looking at all of Newcastle fixtures, but they've got Champions League football coming as well. They've got Aston Villa, who I think will spend a bit of money in this window under Emery. I think he's bringing in more staff to help him as well. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game for Eddie Howe. That looks like a Saturday evening game. Yeah,
a lot of pressure on Eddie this year, but shouldn't be, but there will be, simply to try and do the same he did last year. It would be even harder for him. I'm just looking automatically at the teams who I think are going to struggle, and I'd like to think that Arsenal will beat Forest for us. Obviously, City will hopefully beat Burnley, and Brighton will beat Luton. I'm a bit concerned that Sheffield United will get off to a winning start at home to Palace first day of the season. I can see them getting off to 3 points, which wouldn't be great, and I can see Everton beating Fulham. So we just want to try and keep, with our start, we want to try and keep those teams down there as long as possible with us. And Wolves should hopefully lose at Man United.
I can see Liverpool beating Chelsea as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, Aaron, because Crystal Palace might be massive now as well with their new signing. But John, is it going to give us a little bit of an indication? I mean, Luton Town have got Brighton, who are potentially going to look very good under De Zerbi, and they've got Europe as well. But we'll be looking at that and just seeing how Luton deal with game 1.
Without attempting to get myself awarded for the teams like Luton prize, Luton will
you didn't fall for it.
It's people that aren't thinking about other sides fall for that one. Luton will, though, essentially be just every single game will be a free hit. Luton are ahead of schedule in their plan. They've been fantastic, but they're still... I love them being up because we're no longer the smallest stadium that's in the Premier League as well. But they will be punching above their weight in every single game. apart from maybe Sheffield United, who I think may well struggle because of their finances and their financial troubles, I think, from what I've heard as well. But Sheffield United are another team that I expect to be down there struggling. And then Burnley, I think Burnley's an interesting one, because when you have a team that have been so dominant in the Championship like Burnley were, how do you then transfer to the fact that you can try and play the same way, but you're just not going to get it as right in the next? And people can go, oh, but look at Fulham. Is that Fulham got very lucky? Fulham had one of the worst defensive sets, as in data wise. They were right down the bottom. They just had one incredible goalkeeper in Leno that really kept them in the position that they were. I expect Fulham to be much further down the table, not in danger of relegation, but certainly further down this season. I think you probably don't want to play a newly promoted side first game of the season because it's a party. But after a few weeks, once they've got a few kickings, then maybe you can come in and get another 3 points as well, which is why, that's why we'll be looking at Burnley at home. And, when Luton and Sheffield United, those will pop up towards the end of 2023. We'll be looking forward to those games and targeting all of them as we must get 3 points from those games. And it's just how those teams, just like we had to deal with it last season, it's how every opposition fan will be looking at those games.
You are joining us on YouTube and Twitter, but if you're watching this back on replay, thank you very much. Do use the comments. Tell us what you think up to this point. We're going to now switch to that transfer window that is starting to hot up because it opened, and there's going to be some business we think that AFC Bournemouth need to do. Hit the like button and subscribe. But before we move to AFC Bournemouth, I did ask the guys what they think about the rest of the Premier League. And it was more focused on teams in and around us who we think will be playing around in the bottom half to mid-table. I asked them, give me two clubs. Who do you think will have a tough window? And who do you think will have a good transfer window? And this is what they came up with. So Steve went for Everton to have a tough window, West Ham to have a good window. I said Sheffield United for a tough window, West Ham for a good window. Aaron went Luton Town for a tough window, Nottingham Forest for a good window. And John also went for Luton Town, tough window, Burnley to have a good window. Now, guys, I went for Sheffield United, and I might be wrong. And if I am wrong, do tell me. But I don't think they're blessed with great finances at the moment. I also potentially heard that Heckingbottom might move or go to another club. I mean, it might be completely wrong, but I don't think they're blessed with great finances. And I just feel that Sheffield United might struggle in this window. So that's what I went with. And I do think West Ham will have lots of money potentially through Declan Rice, and they might be able to enhance their squad. I think they're looking as well, Steve. I know you went for West Ham to have a good window. I think they're trying to get rid of Skamaka as well. So they're potentially trying to give themselves 120, 130 million, and you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I picked him. I think if you get the money for Rice and, like you say, possibly Skamaka as well, they've got a big, there's a bit of a chest of money there. And I'm sure that to add to that, they would have had a budget anyway, put aside for possible incomings. And there'll be some other players that go out from them. So I think they've got good scope there. And I think they've actually done reasonably well, West Ham. Financially, they've got themselves a new. Obviously, there's some people feel it's a bit of a windfall. They shouldn't have had the stadium, but they've got themselves into Europe. They got the money from Europe as well. So I think there's and the attraction of playing in Europe. So I think they should have and could have a very good window. A lot of money there, traction of European football, and they've been quite well run, really, last sort of few years.
Do put it in the chat then. Which clubs do you think will have a tough window? Which club do you think will have a good transfer window? Aaron, you did a classic. You went Luton Town. That was like Bournemouth in 2015. They'll have a tough window. Luton Town, never been here before. Well, in the Premier League. Yeah, you've gone for Luton Town. Is it easy?
Yeah, look, teams like Luton are always going to struggle to
done it
to attract.
Done it straight in.
Lean me up,
Straight down the
lean me
hole.
up.
He's gone straight for that. He knows what he's doing.
Look, it's an obvious one for me to choose, and obviously John went for the same. I just think, like that, in the same way that we did, in our first season, they're going to very much rely on that siege mentality. I would imagine that most of the players that got them up would get the chance to play in the higher division in the same way that Eddie did with us. He obviously made a couple of astute additions, and I'm sure Luton will strengthen. But I just think, it sounds obvious. Will they be able to track the players? Will they, what's their kind of structure going to be? What's their process going to be? So I just think they'll struggle a little bit for me. And I went for Forest simply because I just think they'll splash the cash again and probably buy a whole new squad. I mean, I don't know what the financial situation is there. But there'll probably be a lot of turnover. I imagine they'll keep the ones that they kind of rolled the dice last year and bought a lot of people. Some paid off, some didn't. The ones that paid off, they'll obviously keep. Like Gibbs White was outstanding, and obviously Johnson and Danilo, etc., and the goalkeeper, I can't remember his name, Navas, and others didn't. And what they'll do is they'll get rid of them and bring some new players in. So I think they'll probably will have a window, and I do still see them as a massive competitor to us. I always will. So that worries me a little bit because they do seem to be able to attract some pretty good players. They're obviously, they are a big club, a lot of history, and they seem to, they do seem to, be able to attract some of these players, which we might not be able to. So I think they'll have a good window.
Sean says Luton should get young players, but could find some unknown gems. Some really good free transfers out there as well. And John, Will said it as well. Luton giving me Blackpool vibes. Now, historically, teams like that do really well in the first season. Then there's this second season syndrome, which, by the way, is not completely correct. There's only been a couple of teams that have failed to that. But I remember when we come up, I thought it was going to be one season, John. I thought one season, go for it. Let's just blossom. And we pretty much did. Luton could do that. They could just play on heart and just get enough points. Yeah.
I mean, but in terms of Blackpool didn't get a second season. They did. They were hitting Europe for Christmas and then just about went down, I think, at the end, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty confident they didn't get a second season. The reason I've got Luton there is just purely and simply their finances. Their record transfer is $1 million, I think, for their current top striker that they brought in this window just gone. I think Aaron's looking it up. He can tell me who that is. But they spent $2 million in total, I believe, last season. And they just, their finances just nowhere near the level of the majority of the rest of the league. And they have, they've had to spend $10 million on their stadium alone, in the same way that we did when we first came up, to just get it to meet some level of standard for all the TV stuff that's going to come into the stadium, and they've got to improve the floodlights and all this jazz. They can't spend $50 million and then go, oh, well, if we go down, we can sell a few on or whatnot. They run themselves sustainably, and they are not going to go mad at all. They're going to do a Norwich from a few years ago and probably buy about 10 million's worth of talent, and then just go, well, if we went down, at least we got the Premier League funds in, and they'll just see it as a wild ride and probably do a Blackpool, go full hog at it, and then see what happens come the end of the season. In terms of who's going to have a good window, I do think I see where Aaron's coming from with Forest. Surely they can't buy a whole new squad again. But imagine considering I was on their channel for a while, I am subscribed to Forest Fan TV. Wolverine, if you're watching, take a break. You make about 500 videos a day. Take a break, man. The amount of rumors that he posts videos about is ridiculous.
He's creating funds for a transfer.
Yeah. He's bringing in that advertising revenue for I mean, Forest will spend a bit of money, but they need to sell a hell of a lot of players as well. I think Burnley will have a good window. You look at the business that they did in the Championship, and the players that they brought in. Zarori scored that belter against us, and he was one of the talents of the Championship last season. They've started, and they splashed a bit more cash in January. Their two most expensive signings were two players they brought in January that didn't feature a hell of a lot for them. So they clearly have a decent scouting thing going in Belgium as well, obviously through Company's time time there too. I think they will just buy really sensibly. I think they've got the facilities to it. I think they've got the manager, as much as maybe he doesn't have a huge reputation as a manager, as a player, obviously, who was incredible. I think the name and the club will bring in enough talent for them to stay up. I spoke about how, like, you know, a possession heavy style suddenly comes and they don't get that possession when they come into the championship, when they go up the division. But I do think they'll be fine. I do think Burnley actually will be fine. I've flip-flopped on this constantly, but I do think they'll do quite well. And I think part of that will be some good transfer dealings.
Lovely place to live as well.
Some eyes might be on Adebayo as well. If he has a good season, hopefully Luton don't stay up or they don't put us down. But, you know, we may never hear the words Rhian Brewster again if Adebayo ends up turning out to be a good player. Moving on to Bournemouth before Steve comes in and makes a comment to definitely bring Rhian Brewster into this conversation.
I think you've said enough on that.
Yes, I did. Right. Looking at Bournemouth, though, before we talk about some transfer targets, maybe a Dutchman is on his way. I also asked the guys if they could pick an 11 now with what we've got before transfers. Starting 11, who would you position on the pitch, which would leave gaps for where we, in theory, need to bring players in to walk into that starting 11. So I'm going to show a graphic on the screen. Do get involved in the chat if you want. And this is what you all come up with. So, John, you've got a back 4-2-2-2, however you want to play the back four formation, whatever. It's Neto, Sabani, Senesi, fullbacks. Currently, you want to fill them. Rothwell, position alongside Rothwell. We know that Lerma's gone out. Tavernier off the right, Traore, Solanke. And that left wing free as well. So looking at potential transfer business for you, John, you're wanting to bring in 4 players that could walk straight into this side.
Yeah, and in terms of that right winger position, you know, Steve's got Ouattara there. I think Ouattara, Tavernier, one or the other, could fit at that right mid position. I do think that no one has really nailed down that left mid spot. Tavernier had a decent period at left mid towards the end of 2022, but I don't think I really would like. I'd rather see him playing off the right. That left wing, I think, is open for someone who can maybe, you know, try and just make that position their own. A right footer that's going to cut inside and do a similar job to what Tavernier does from the right. I want to see more of Traore. And as much as I see where the other two are coming from in terms of Solanke as a 10 and bringing in a proper goal scorer up front, I think that I would like to see Traore get some more game time and really show what he can do from a number 10 spot. But fullbacks is the really important one. You know, we really, really need to see more going forward from those positions. But then again, I think that Adam Smith he's fine. He's just not. He just needs. It's an area we can definitely improve. You know, Adam Smith is approaching his 10th. Maybe his 10th year at the club. I believe over all told. 10th or 11th, whichever one. I think he's due a testimonial at some point, regardless. You know, he's approaching the twilight of his career. There's definitely a way we can improve that right back spot and bring in, you know, more offensive competition. And then we just don't have a left back at the moment, so kind of need one. And then obviously, well, 2 definitely. And obviously, left back is the area we've been most linked with. I think from if you look at the rumours of players coming in, obviously Vigna, we're trying to get a better deal than was it 12.9 million or whatever it was that was part of his release clause as part of the loan contract. And obviously the central midfielder with Lerma needs replacing, but fullbacks I think is the most important point to really bring in quality now, because centre backs we've got some real strength I think in there at the moment. But yeah, we could easily see upwards of 6 or 7 new signings coming in. It would not surprise me.
Steve, this is where the conversation slightly changes in what we've achieved here. So Sean has said we need a 15-goal striker and a backup for Adam Smith. And Rob has also said with Stephen Aaron, Solanke is in the 10 role, sell Billing, free up funds. Now, Billing's contract ends next season. He may have had a new contract offer. Surely he has. Clearly not accepted. We've spoken about this in a previous video me and John did on transfers. If he's not going to sign, got to sell him. Can't keep losing players in their prime. Billing's worth 15-20 million at least with his numbers. So the conversation's changing now, Steve, because when we go to your side, Again, it's a back four formation moving forward. It's Neto, Senesi, Sabani. You agree with John? Fullbacks, we need positions filled. Yeah. Rothwell, Lerma replacement. Now you've gone Utara, Tavernier off the left, Solanke. Now you're wanting a goal scorer.
Yeah, I do want a goal scorer because I just don't think, well, unless we can free up Solanke to, unless Traore can come in and do that role and Solanke can just concentrate on scoring goals, because it's what he's lacking as our striker. He does so much in the build up for our moves. We all know what he does. His work rates are phenomenal, but he's just not in the box enough scoring goals. And so if he's going to drop that deep in the way we play anyway, he could sit in there and do that cam role, however you want to call it. Traore could do it as well. So you could have them two as cover for that position, really. I mean, we're quite blessed because you could even say someone like Christie could do it. Probably Tavernier could do it. You know, we've probably got a lot of options there if we wanted to. But I just think he does that work rate so well. It would be kind of silly to not utilise it. And like Sean said, if we can get some money for Billing to finance bringing in someone who is a bit more of a natural goal scorer, who would add more numbers than Dom has been, then I think that's a great angle to go at, because Dom will still give you numbers from that position because he's kind of doing that anyway. So yeah, so that's definitely so. Who that person is you bring in as a striker, I'm not too sure, because they're, you know, everybody's looking for that striker. I know a little gem out there who's going to come into the Premier League and score you 20 goals a season, 15, 20 goals, but they're just not, you know, there's just not many of them around. You either have to take risk on a youngster or an unknown sort of thing, really, because proven goal scorers are probably out of our price bracket. The other, sorry, I was just going to say the other positions around the pitch for me. I mean, I had hear me out on this. Had quite a little romantic idea. So let's say John's put Tavernier he's put him on the right, as opposed to where I put him on the left. What about bringing his brother in at right back?
Oh. How old is James Tavernier, though?
Well, this is the thing. He's 31.
A bit old, isn't he?
Right.
Yeah. And he's kind of a bit of a legend. He's unlikely to get out.
You can imagine they've got a relationship. A good one.
Can't he take a set piece? I'm sure he takes
he's
free kicks for Rangers.
He's a good set ball specialist. You probably pick him up for about 5 million or something like that. And wouldn't he want a shot? Wouldn't he want a shot at the Premier League before you retire?
Talking about strikers, we're obviously
I don't think
we know that Semenyo picked up an injury. Mark Singleton's talking about Semenyo. I think he's going to be a squad player. Jackson, look, we didn't take up the option. He scored bundles of goals in a couple of months for Villarreal. Now he's being linked with Chelsea. I think that one's past, Aaron. Personally, I think that boat's gone. That ship's out.
What was crazy is he was about to sign a 5-year deal, and we didn't sign him because he was going to miss 6 games. Literally, he was going to miss 6 games. And I understand at the time that they wanted someone to make an immediate impact and keep us up. But in hindsight, it's one of the things. It's now looking like a moronic decision to Villarreal said he's back in March. We said no, it's April. He actually came back in middle of March and scored like 12 goals in 9 games, and he's now one of the most sought after strikers in Europe. So that was a big screw up.
How is that different to Sabani?
No idea.
See Sabani until like the last 3 games.
Don't understand it.
I mean, it's a bit different in terms of. It's a bit different in terms of like we had defenders. We didn't have necessarily another striker that was going to put balls in the back of the net. And Semenyo was brought in, I think, as someone with talent to come for later down, be a squad player, play on the left or the right or in the 10 because he's versatile. The one thing that probably frustrates me a lot is that I guarantee you that when Chelsea come down to Bournemouth at some point in the season and Jackson starts for them, Bournemouth fans are going to boo him. And it's just like, oh, come on. We turned him down, you morons. Please just use your brain cells.
You never know.
Aaron, let's go over to the final pitch where you're a back 4 again. We're not seeing a back 3 here. Now, this might be the reason why we're not signing Vinya, but we've got back 4s going on. So it's a back 4 formation. Neto, Senesi, Sabani. You agree fullbacks need to be filled. We need starters in there. Maybe Smith as a squad player. Rothwell, we need to replace Lerma. You've got Tavernier off the right. You've got the open space left. Solanke is a number 10 cam like Steve. You also want a goal scorer. Tell us about your prediction of what we might need to do in the transfer window to have a good squad going into that first game. And when Steve was talking about Solanke, I very much agree with him. I said it as well. He's doing too much. Does Solanke need to do that much? But there's only a couple of people, Aaron, that can tell him, and that's the manager and coaches. If they're not changing his game to benefit us so he scores more goals, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things. There's that, but there's also whether he is naturally going to get enough goals. You know, he's so talented, and then some games, especially the Championship, he showed he can finish. I just feel that he's undroppable for me. So he, as you say, drops deep. He creates. He's looming strong, and I do think we need a goal scorer, because if we're going to let Billing go, we're going to need a lot more goals up there. And, you know, as you said, who knows it's going to be? I'd love it to be Jackson up there, but it's probably not going to be. But someone else, that's not a reason to think we shouldn't. But I'm going to caveat it because, you know, I also have got high hopes for Traore, like John has. So he can clearly play that role, and I wouldn't be adverse to that. I still think that's Brooks's best position. Centrally as a cam, as opposed to on the right, so Brooks can play that role. So whether it's even if we do buy a goal scorer, Dom might have to be out of the team, because if Traore is playing well, if Brooks is playing well, if we keep Billing, obviously, you know, he's going to keep his place in the team. The reason I left out Ouattara is not because I don't rate Ouattara. I just think that, and again, I'd be happy to see him in there with Tavernier week in, week out. But I just think Tavernier at the moment is obviously ahead of him and has to be in the team. And I'd like to see whether, you know, as I said, whether it's a Jackson type on the left or up front, or, you know, Cliver or whoever else it is that potentially is going to really be consistent. Ouattara could potentially be that person, but not from the left for me. I think him and Tavernier are both better on the right. So that's something to think about. And just a quick mention, because we've all left Lloyd Kelly out. That's quite harsh, because I think Kelly can be, and was towards the end of last season, outstanding. And I think we all agree he's just not a left back. He doesn't give us anything going forward, and he's not a left back. So unless we play a 3, which we could well do, and I think if we do play 3 centre backs, Kelly, Senesi, and Zabani is one hell of a 3 centre backs, which allows then the more attacking fullbacks. If not, I think Senesi and Zabani would be the first choice for all of us. So Kelly would miss out. But yeah, I don't for 1 minute think he won't play a big part next season. And yeah, I think we all agree Lerma has to be replaced. Lewis Cook, love the guy. He's not up to it. Certainly hasn't shown recently he's up to it. Pearson, everyone knows how I feel about Ben Pearson. I love the guy to bits, but he's probably not, you know, good enough. Would I have him in the squad? Maybe. Would he be a starter? No. So yeah, we desperately need a quality centre midfielder to play alongside Rothwell, and maybe another one, because, you know, injuries could happen.
In some of those predictions as well, you've left some open spaces in that attacking area, and Ben and a few others in the chat have said Brooks. Now, Brooks is going to get a full pre-season, but are we saying that maybe Brooks is still going to be a little distance away from being a starter in this squad once we have this transfer window that we hope's a positive one, Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, Brooks is a great shout, and he showed at Everton what we haven't seen for God knows how long. Was a properly fit David Brooks actually was our best player that day. Albeit we could all say we were on the beach a little bit, whatever. But he like you say, he's got a full pre-season. He's going to get that under his belt with the team. So he should. You'd like to think at the beginning, the first game of the season, he should be, you know, singing off the same hymn sheet as everyone else and fully fledged member of the squad. Whether he nails down his old right wing position is yet to be seen, because there's a lot of, like we pointed out, Ouattara, Tavernier, you know, Christie even can all play there. It's a very difficult spot to nail down with the options we've got. He's certainly got it in there, but also we said he can play cam. He can play that 10 role. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, I mean, this is all sort of dependent on Gary O'Neill's philosophy that he's going to develop over the summer and what he wants to do, of where we see players. Because we could be looking at this, and we're just looking at this on probably the most common formation we played sort of last season-ish. We don't know what's going to happen in the off-season and who's going to be where, but this is what we've got to go on. And I think if you bring in, the thing with Brooks is I think he just lacks that little bit of cutting-edge pace for me. I think if he had that a bit more, I think he'd be a bit more of a threat than
But
he is.
That's where I'd play him centrally, Steve. I don't think. I
Well,
think
yeah,
in the Premier
maybe.
League, you need quick wingers, and for me, like of Tavernier, Tara, whoever else, Anthony. But I think Brooks
then
in that
we've just
he's got
spent
the
30
best
million on-
vision. Traore, you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you know, but there's going to be injuries. There's going to be rotation. I just think Brooks has got that a brilliant eye for a pass, and he's got twinkle toes, and he could pick those passes out.
We're going to talk about a Dutch winger in the moment that we're very, very interested in, and the deal seems to be going smoother. Exactly not. But what I've done, guys, is there's a couple of players that kind of the chat are throwing some names out there in positions that we had empty on those pitches. So I've sort of numbered 1, 2, and 3. So John, just give me a number between 1, 2, and 3, and I want this to be like a quick 1-minute Q&A. Tell me your thoughts and what the chat's saying. So 1, 2, or 3, John?
2.
2. So let's go 4. So Mark Cole has been scouting for you all week, John, and he's come back with Walker Peters or Max Aarons.
Walker Peters, yeah.
Walker Peters, I think, has the capability to be higher up than what Bournemouth are. To be honest, I think Walker Peters, when he was at Southampton and getting regular game time, he showed creatively he's easily capable of playing in a squad that's looking to fight for Europe. He was one of their chief creators for a decent period of time. However, his injury record now is a bit more skeptical. He was knocked out of the team by Livramento, who is a young player that probably will be getting into a very high level squad from Southampton. I like Max Aarons, and I think that he's a player that has a lot of potential, but at the same time, he's now at the age, he's starting to get a bit older where you're like, you haven't necessarily shown it yet. He's had one season in the Premier League. I don't think he really shone all that much. But I wouldn't be against it. He's definitely more attacking right back. His defensive numbers aren't shocking by any means. He's just, and younger. He'll be able to get up and down the wing. And I do think that given that we've just sold, Jack Stacey's just gone there, they probably are looking to sell Aarons to get some money in because Norwich weren't that good last season.
You seem to have a thought on that, Stephen. And I've got a thought on Max Aarons. This Q&A 1 minute is going to turn into a bit longer. But Max Aarons was a player that a lot of clubs were looking at a few years ago, especially German clubs as well, where a lot of English players go to do really well and then they kick on again. Max Aarons been in the Championship. I also heard that at times for Norwich, he was playing left back. Don't know why. And if that's true, but I'm not hearing much about Max Aarons anymore. That's the concern I have. I'm not sure he's actually turned into the fullback that a lot of people thought he would be. And if you look at his numbers, he barely gives you anything.
No, it is a concern of why, there was all that hype about him when he sort of turned up on the scene and Norwich were doing their yo-yoing. And now you don't hear much about him at all. And I wonder why no big or bigger clubs sort of went in for him and tried to swoop down on him, because if he was as good as everyone said, and I'm not saying he's a bad player because I've seen him play for Norwich and I do rate him. He's decent, but I think he is that Championship level. I think maybe top half, maybe bottom end of the Premier League at best. But we want to be aiming a little bit higher than that now, is what the message we get from Bill Foley. So we want to be. I just think he's, like John said, he's probably. I would imagine he's probably in his mid-20s now, is he?
Older, probably.
Yeah, older than that. So yeah, I mean, he's not really sort of like a young asset now, is he? So I didn't really have that. I like the Walker Peters one, but as John's pointed out, he's a little bit injury prone, and the Livramento one. I think it'd be nice if we went and raided Saints for a change instead of them raiding Little
I said this back in January.
I've got a list of them here.
I said back in January when Bill Foley took over, I said I can't wait for the day when Southampton call us, and I think. Yeah. They couldn't go wrong, really, giving us a call because we've got some really good players that do really well in the Championship. Aaron, 1 or 3?
3.
3. You've got Mark again. Calvin Phillips on loan.
Calvin Phillips on the permanent will do me as well.
Yeah,
I mean, look, clearly the guy's brilliantly talented, was great for Leeds, great for England. Obviously, has fallen foul of the usual, gone to Man City and hardly played. Obviously, had injuries as well. But yeah, look, I mean, if he can get back to anything like he was, it'd be a brilliant signing. Obviously, the sort of player we'd need box to box, international. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to that. Wouldn't send him to Ward-Prowse either. I mean, you know, the good things about Southampton players is they wouldn't have to move house if they joined
Exactly,
us. So,
yeah.
you know.
But they will cost you 50 million because that's pretty much the price tag they put on all their
Yeah,
players.
look, Ward-Prowse is obviously coming to us, but I think Walker Peters is a relatively good shout.
Final one, Steve. There's going to be two coming in here because we've had another one come in. You were talking about a striker. There's one from Phoenix, Danny Ings, and the other one is Alfredo Moreles, who's now out of contract from Rangers, not from Rangers because he hasn't got a club.
How old is he now?
Come on, John. You've normally got your spare screen open with.
I've not seen much of Moreles, but I know he gets a lot of goals up there. But
He's 26.
Oh, is he 26?
26. Aaron's is only 23, by the way.
You're joking? 23?
Really?
Yep.
He's been around for about 10 years. So he was playing when he was 13.
That was a hell of a YTS scheme, wasn't it?
I mean, God, 23. Okay, that's interesting.
Neither of those two options really excite me. Danny Ings, I think, past his best. He can't really nail down a spot in the West Ham team, can he? So, I mean, you could say he could probably be a backup, but I wouldn't want to waste a transfer on him. Morelos is a bit what I don't really know about. I always find him a bit of a hothead, Morelos. I always seem to think he used to get himself in a bit of trouble, sent off a lot of cards and stuff like that. Grit and determination. I think there's some other... I'd go to Saints because I think they've got... I quite like that Alcaraz and I quite like Sulemana as well. I know Sulemana's not necessarily a striker.
Yeah, he's a winger.
Lavia.
But he can play... Lavia. There's some options. There's another lad I heard about. I don't know if John knows about him, but he's a striker. I think he's at Girona, called, and they call him in the new Suarez, is Matias Arezzo. I don't know if I won't pronounce that the same as John would have done.
I don't.
But he's only 20 years old, Uruguayan lad, and he looks a little bit like I watched him a little bit. I mean, he looks like he's the old Man City striker, Argentinian. Little lad.
Well, there you go, John. You've got some homework.
Aguero. Short, stocky, really explosive, but hasn't really worked out for him in Girona. And I don't know. Take a risk. That's what I think.
There's some homework for John.
Can I just put this out there? Left back. I don't know what anyone thinks of this. Angelino.
Oh,
is he still at Manchester City?
No, he got sold again.
He's Leipzig.
Got sold again.
And he's been on loan at Hoffenheim.
I tell you what.
But he had a really good season.
There's more videos coming, you know.
I'll take Malacia.
There's more streams out here with the way that names are being dropped in the chat. We could just have a
let's
whole
sit here all
stream
night and talk about it.
Q&A and just throw names around and get your thoughts.
The cricket doesn't start for 14 hours. We've got a bit of time.
That's my one.
But
that's my shout for replacing Lerma. Tyler Adams from Leeds.
Yeah.
But Forest are the ones that are most linked with him at the moment, I think.
Well, that's the problem.
There you go, Cameron.
Whatever they don't want, we'll have.
John took over the chat then, just for you, Cameron, to get Tyler Adams on the screen. But we are linked with a winger. So in those predicted fields of players, looking at current players, there were some positions in attacking midfield. And Bournemouth look like they're going to go for a winger. We think it's around £10 million. It looks like it's quite advanced. Guys, let's just wrap this latest stream video up talking about Justin Clivert, who can play either wing, left midfield. Mark McAdams backed this up as well. There's a lot of stuff on Twitter that you shouldn't believe, fake accounts. 24 years old. Look over on SofaScore. You'll get some stats over there to help you. I don't know who really to come to first because I do want to get your thoughts on it. Aaron, I'm not completely blown away by it. I'm not going to lie. If it's £10 million, I think it's definitely worth a punt. There's a couple of question marks for me. He got 1 assist last season for Valencia on loan, played about 26 games. I mean, that's Christie numbers. Got goals, though. Fair enough. But this is a player now at 24 that keeps hopping around. And that worries me. Why hasn't the guy found a home? And why isn't he blitzing up more than he is? Now, he could be a talent. You can go on YouTube. It'll give you a 3-minute reel. Looks like he's got good feet. But what's he do outside of that?
I'll be totally honest. I don't know much about him. A surname obviously excited me. Other than that, he did score 8 goals last season, though. So 1 assist for 8 goals is definitely, pretty good return for a winger, I guess, or midfielder. 20 whatever games he played. I don't know enough about him. Is it a position we desperately need? Not sure. Unless we can get someone, who really is a world beater, and can we ever get anyone like that? I just don't know. So it's one, I guess, you trust the process. I mean, I wasn't blown away when we got Tavernier, and look how well that turned out. So yeah, I mean, I do think we do need a left midfielder for the purposes we've said that, Tavernier's better on the right, Otara's better on the right, Brooks is better on the right, Christie's better on the right. So Anthony's the only one on the left, and I'm not sure where he's going to fit in this season. So we do need a left-sided midfielder. Traore can play there, I guess. But I guess if we're going to sign Cliver, he's the one, and that's our wingers done. I would think we certainly don't need any more wingers after that.
I mean, Jayden Anthony, Steve, has signed a new contract. It is 10 million. It's not 20. It's not 30. Let's hope he can be this real talent. And if he is, Steve, his value will go up. I mean, he's going to have a contract, we believe, I think I've heard, to about 2027. But it's probably not a position that you thought when the window opened that you thought, well, yeah, we really need to go and get a winger. But that seems to be the first position and player through the door, potentially.
Maybe it's like what Aaron said, we're blessed with right side. We don't have anyone for the left, or really that they're happy with. I don't know what that says to Jayden Anthony, because I don't think this looks much of an upgrade personally. Yeah, that's a good shout, Ben. I know there's a lot of people saying about Anthony moving into a more central role, because he did do that at the youth team, scored a lot of goals for them. So that's not a bad shout. But I'm with Aaron on this one. I don't really know too much about Justin Cliver. Yeah, I know he's still at Roma, is he? I think technically he's still a Roma player. So it seems like we should buy him, because we only seem to deal with Roma at the moment.
Got about 3 players on the go from there, I think.
Fullback. I think they've got some fullbacks as well we can have as well. But I don't know. It's a bit of a risk. He's never really, like you said, he's never really been nailed down at home. He's been on loan the last 3 seasons. Who knows? He might settle here.
The worry is, John, we keep calling Roma. If Gary O'Neill does end up struggling, I don't want Mourinho. So this could backfire on me. Yeah.
Well, we're only taking his cast off, so Mourinho wouldn't come in, because he's got him. He
used to be Liverpool, players. Now it's Roma.
Justin Cliver for you, John. Yeah, look, the player's at a good age, still got time to grow. As I said, I think he looks like he's got good feet. I do wonder what he's about off the ball, but the reason we'll be bringing him in is to add value where we need to add value. We scored the least amount of goals that we ever have in the Premier League last season. We need to try and get to at least 40 goals and beyond next season. And I suppose that's the reason for bringing him in.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a winger. He's not being brought in to score 10 goals. He's obviously there to contribute. You think that he scored overall, he scored 8 goals, 1 assist. In the league, it was just 6 goals, no assists. But when you look at the other wingers that we've got that play a lot, Ryan Christie wasn't exactly contributing numbers that far. Anthony got 3 goals, 1 assists. Ouattara, across 2 teams, got 7 goals, 8 assists, and Tavernier got 5 goals, 4 assists. The numbers aren't blowing you away from any of those players. So, he's been brought in as a really good option off the left to cut in off the right, skillful, very attacking. He's not. He's going to be a bit more of a dribbler. And he's not really much of a passer. His pass, he's pretty quick. I remember hearing a lot more about him when he was coming through at Ajax, because that's when he was sort of like starting to show his thing. And when you think about, sort of saying like, okay, he hasn't nailed down a spot, which I totally get. But, he started at Ajax where he was playing a decent number of games. As soon as really he hit kind of form after 2 years, Roma picked him up. Roma thought he's not good. He's not at the level at 19, whatever it was for Serie A. So, when you consider the clubs that he went to on loan, he went to Leipzig in Germany, which is like, I think they finished second that year. He went to Nice in France, which is sort of middling, but then he went to Valencia in Spain, which they're more lower end of Spain at the moment, but that's still a pretty darn historic club. And he played 31 games at Nice, 29 games at Valencia, 27 games at Leipzig. He wasn't going there to sit on the bench. He was actually pretty heavily involved in all 3 teams. So he's being sent on loan, obviously, to get more experience and to get more regular game time. And that's what he's been getting. And he has been contributing not massive numbers, but he is... What we've got with Anthony on the left is very much more of the intelligent playmaker kind of player. He turns up in the box at the right time to get the odd goal. But, we saw in the Championship that his passing ability was what impressed me from that left wing and finding the right pass. But he's also not got Zamora anymore to bounce off. So I think Anthony and Cliver should be really good competition to push each other from left wing going forward next season. And I totally agree with the other guys. If we bring him in, there's literally no need for another winger. That should be the only winger business we do this season, unless we let someone go. But I can't even see that happening, really.
Close your eyes, Steve. I am just going to throw this one on the screen. Ross Barkley. Yeah, I would. I definitely would. Free transfer. Look, he's not playing for Chelsea now. I reckon we could rediscover that. I do like this one. Aaron knows this because I said this to him the other day. And I do want to take this moment. Thanks for joining us on this live stream. If you're watching this back on replay, thank you very much. Do get your thoughts in below in the comments. Do hit the like button. Thank you to our monthly members. As always, you can donate or become a member at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. But it's great to link up with you again on YouTube and Twitter. Live streaming is the best because you bring so much content in the chat. Guys, always great to see you as well inside StreamYard. Aaron, how are you feeling? Final question of the night. How are you feeling about the transfer window? Are you going to be positive come first game in the Premier League? Do you think we'll have a really good transfer window?
I think we will. I mean, look, we've shown in January, Bill Foley means business. I fully expect us to buy not loads of players, but some real quality, 5-6 players. And, I think January proved the sort of caliber of player we can bring in. So I'm very excited about it. I've said before on the previous show, Lerma for me is the biggest worry, the biggest replacement has to be that because he brought so much to us. But then we do need to add goals at the other end of the pitch. We need fullbacks. Well, we've spoken about it. So yeah, I am confident in Foley and co. We trust, and I think it's going to be an exciting, few weeks with Fabrizio Romano saying, "Here we go." Mark McAdam and Twist Temple. It's going to be exciting, and I fully expect, and we need to strengthen the squad.
It's going to be a battle out there, Steve, trying to get these players, trying to enhance the squad, competing with other clubs. Are you feeling confident that going into that first game, we're going to have a really strong side and we can kick on, beat West Ham and see how we get on? Or are you sort of sitting on the fence thinking, let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks?
No, not at all, mate. We've got the best beach in England, so why wouldn't?
Are we still doing that? Are we still doing that? Are we still showing them down the beach?
That's still our attractiveness, isn't it? We've got a nice little beach.
When they're attracting players, didn't they give them directions to go via the BIC? They're a long way around, so
got Ferris wheel down there and all sorts now. No, I think like Aaron said, it's going to be an interesting sort of month or so before it's going to be. Jesus, it's going to come round so quickly, sort of 6 weeks or so. And like you say, Bill Foley's sort of back in the boys. He's spent some money in January. He said he's going to spend some more. And I think we've just sort of do the sort of Brighton thing and sort of, look at these guys and say, look, we're a shop window for you for the Premier League. I think that's how we're going to have to be for the minute. And just say, look, just come and showcase your skills for us or whatever. We'll give you a chance in the Premier League. And I think that's how we have to go about getting players, with the view that one day they might sell on for hopefully a profit like Brighton have done. So, yeah, it's exciting. I wonder who we're going to bring in. And as long as we don't bring Mourinho in, that's fine.
100%. I can't believe it, John. It feels like we've not really had time to breathe. We've had a little bit of a breathe where we sort of finished the season, the content slowed down a bit. We're doing these streams just to stay interactive and chat Bournemouth. But very quickly, the fixtures are going to be coming around. We're going to be watching matches on TV, going to the games, and off the field as well. The club are getting the training ground done, and so many stuff going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, first fixtures of the Premier League is not until the 12th of August, so we do have 2 months to go until everything properly kicks off. But we still have pre-season. We'll all be keeping an eye out for where our pre-season is this season.
Bayer, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Has it already been confirmed? Right, okay.
I think so. And we're playing. I saw something earlier.
Oh yeah, I saw. We definitely got a Lorient friendly at home confirmed towards the end of it. But
don't forget Poole Town away.
Oh yeah,
Brockenhurst. Yeah, definitely. That's for the under 21s from now on, I think. But yeah, obviously we'll all be keeping on top of that. You can expect plenty more content coming from us. But yeah, for transfer window, I mean, what's on our list? It's probably 2 left backs, a right back, central midfielder, maybe 2, and a left winger at minimum. So that's before we sell anyone. So yeah, there's a lot of business to be done. I just hope we don't go quite as far as Forest. I don't want that happening for us, to be fair. But looking forward to a busy transfer window.
Cheers, guys. Stay hydrated. It's warm out there at the moment, but thanks for joining me on this live stream. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you to you, the fans. If you joined us live, thank you so much. The interaction was fantastic. We'll get some more of these videos and content coming to you. If you're watching this back on replay, thank you very much as well. Round of applause to everyone. Do get those comments below. Fixtures are out. Transfer windows open. Maybe Bournemouth are signing a player, a winger very, very soon, and many more. We need some fullbacks. But from me, John, Steve, Aaron on this stream, we will see you on the next one. Look after yourself. See you soon. Up Cherries.
Up Cherries.
Up the Cherries.
Yellow.